So during the last couple of months I started to catch myself with the feeling that all the new releases, they're kinda bad. At the best they're mid, or even they're just failing at the very beginning. And I believe you had the same feeling, so I asked myself a question: what's actually the case, why is it happening? And decided to make some deeper research about it, about different policies, about different aspects, the feedback from players, the analytics, the numbers, and so on. And it's a big one. I wanted to provide the results, let's say, and discuss a little bit the future of upcoming games. So yeah, this should be interesting. Let's begin. Of course, we are going to compare different games, and also in this video I'm going to mention some big games like Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. This is a controversial topic for many, I guess, but I will try to be as much reasonable as possible with some facts, without some made ideas. So we'll start with the simple thing about the typical mistakes of some projects, of some games, which are done mostly by developers, and the reasoning behind it. So first mistake we're going to mention here is going to be most likely about pay to win aspect and companies being too greedy. There are quite a lot of them who are providing really aggressive monetization model, and when we're going to speak specifically about different details, we can provide here an example of Tower of Fantasy, which is pushing you to spend a lot of money to stay competitive. It's mostly like a requirement, but also the thing that is going to make it more heavy, it's not like only due to pay to win aspect. It's never going to be the case, I believe, and the most important thing is actually about the actual content that we are going to receive for paying such huge amount of money, if it's going to actually worth it. And in most cases developers are providing some really poor content. There is no like real MMO content or something like that. There is no real rewards at the end, and it makes no sense to actually invest that much in such games. But still, for players who again want to compete and receive at least something, they have to invest heavily. On the other hand, some companies, they may implement the pay to win aspect in the other way, where it's not going to affect straightly your performance, but it's going to provide you some cosmetics or some, I don't know, convenience for your life in the game. And it's not always the good thing, because also it depends how you're going to implement this. If, for example, it's going to be really cost a lot, or the chances to receive certain, I don't know, outfit or whatever it can be. We have here an example of Blue Protocol, which are kind of failed in this case, and a lot of people, a lot of players, they got scared about such pay to win element in the game. Again, low chances, high prices. And at the end we have such a thing that people, players, they see it from the perspective of actually a company trying to milk them as much as possible, because they don't believe in their own project, or I don't know, something like that. The second moment that we can mention here is going to be about the optimization issues and bugs at the very release, at the very start. We also have quite some examples, and the latest one which I can mention is going to be probably about Chrono Odyssey. The optimization issue, with even the fact that they introduced on their official Discord server that the main reason for the beta is not like about testing different stuff which is related to optimization, but more about the server's capacity or how they are going to handle the huge amount of players, something like that. But these are the first impressions of players, and they matter in most cases the most, because when you're getting an early access for players, they're getting into your game, they're having an option to test different stuff, they saw your trailers or whatever, they're seeing one stuff, and in fact in your game they're going to receive some bugs, some mechanics which are not going to work or something like that, and a little bit about expectations is going to be discussed later. So when we have a lot of optimizational issues at the very release, especially when the game is officially released, when people have a lot of bugs or optimization issues, they have a feeling about the product which is not ready to hit the market, and it makes you feel that what kind of bullshit am I playing? Why should I play this? And they're leaving like instantly from the very beginning, from the first day. The third moment which I can mention here is going to be specifically about the content which the game is able to provide. This, in my specific case, is really important. I believe this is one of the most important parts. I should say they're all equal, let's say, but for me specifically, from my point of view, this is the most important stuff. When you have content which you're interested in, which is interesting to play, when you have the actual end game content which is going to hook you for another decade or something like that, this is cool. That's what everybody wants to have, and they want to stay updated and so on. But in fact, sometimes we're receiving such projects as Blue Protocol, which has been developed for 8 years. It has several delays with releases and so on, and at the end people are receiving the game which is kinda empty, and at the end it makes no sense. It turns out being just a shitty routine which you're going to do from one day to another, grinding mobs, doing the same daily tasks or whatever is going to be the case, and without any reason for really doing it, because it's not going to provide you, I don't know, any competition, any goal or something like that. You're not going to receive anything. Fourth reason or mistake which we can mention here is going to be about specifically unique aspect of a game and about game design or something like that. The whole thing here that many games which we're getting at the very release, they're positioning themselves as killers of huge projects which already running successfully for quite a long period of time, and they don't really match expectations. So the real thing here is that actually if the game wants to beat the bigger one, it should to provide some unique features that are going to be more interesting, more attractive for players, that they're going to see it and understand that, yeah, okay, this really looks decent, this is better than what we have right now in this game, so maybe I should give it a try, and at the end it's going to be actually a really good change, a really good experience. Here it might be not really a good one example, but yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Wuthering Waves. I'm not a hater of this game, don't get me wrong. Right now, as it stands, it's probably the best gacha game, not gonna lie. But we're talking about history, yeah, let's say. At the very beginning, when this game has been released, it's been done kinda poor, but kudos to developers of this game, they actually made it. They started to work about it and they made quite a success. So sometimes not really good start isn't going to actually lead to a failure at the end, but is going to delay your real success by a lot and push you to do some, I don't know, unnecessary work, give you some unnecessary struggles or something like that, when it could have been done really well at the very beginning, with people having certain expectations, meeting these expectations and getting a really complete project at the very beginning, at the very start. And the last but not the least moment to mention here is actually going to be about the bad communication between developers and player base. and here I mean more specifically dev teams who are not responding to players which have certain concerns, or I don't know, they don't like this or that aspect. They are providing suggestions or solutions of how to improve the game, but as they don't listen, they don't provide any feedback, they're not providing any updates about the state of the game, about future plans, and so on. I believe on your own you can think about different examples, maybe you play such games, and all the aspects that I mentioned before, maybe they sound to you some kind of familiar. So just recall the projects that you have been playing before or playing right now, and maybe you're going to find some similarities to the points that I already mentioned. Now let's talk a little bit about the outcomes which we're going to receive with the mentioned issues in different games that we have discussed before. So again, a really bright one example we can here mention, and it's going to be again about Tower of Fantasy. The whole thing that with the global release in August 2022, this game gathered millions of players and got revenues of over $33 million just in the first couple weeks. But already in 4 months, this game received just a drastic decrease in online, and the whole active audience dropped by 95%, and the monthly income dropped by 85% in compared to what it was at the very beginning. The other moment which actually has a great impact is going to be about reviews, about videos that everyone is doing on YouTube, and some big content creators providing their personal opinions, which is fine, don't get me wrong, everyone has their own opinion, and if it's constructive, it's supposed to be out there. No matter what, is it going to be negative or positive? And I'm talking about this not as a negative one aspect, but as in general the area, the feedback from player base, from content creators, which is provided not just for other players but also for developers to actually see in what condition their projects are, if they need to do some actions or not, and obviously for players who are watching this to actually understand what is this game about all. Is it any good or not? Is it worth your time, spendings, and so on? And obviously, as I already mentioned before, it has a huge impact on success of the project. If reviews are going to be positive, if the game is really going to be good, it's going to lead to increase of interest and people actually wanting to participate in this project, try this out, I don't know, invest their time, invest their monies, and so on. And on the contrary, we have the opposite thing when we have some examples of bad negative reviews, which is leading to a complete destruction of projects, or even, as a matter of fact, moments when projects are not going to be released from beta to actual global release. Also here I should mention one moment. The thing is that in reality right now we are facing such moments when we're getting a little bit tired from projects which we're playing for quite some time. We're getting bored a little bit, and that's fine, it's how things are working. We're looking for something new, we want to try something new and some really with a high quality, but it's not going to meet our expectations, and people are getting more and more angry about it when they see just a perfect project from trailers, but in the fact they're going to receive some kind of bullshit. Reaction is kinda obvious in this case, I believe. So we basically covered the most important aspects about the reasons why certain games failing, was behind it, the perspective of players, the issues and mistakes from developers team, the feedback of the audience, revenues, and so on, all that stuff which is matter. Now let's talk about the real successful projects and what's going to be behind them. Why is it happening? Why they're successful? So I'm going to be as precise as possible and as critical as possible. Once again, for you to keep in mind, the stuff that we're talking here, it's related to the history from the past to current days, and I'm going to cover some aspects from recent days as well. So we're going to mention here some successful projects which are Genshin Impact when it's been released, and after a certain period of time, I believe it was #1 gacha MMO. Also, we can mention here Honkai Star Rail's Black Desert. So first of all, we should mention the point about the quality of the game, the polishing aspect of it, and a really nice smooth release from the first day. And we even can mention probably the open beta test or something like that. They matters a lot. By that moment already, games should be almost at the final stage. Ideally, of course, there might be several issues, several bugs, I don't know, but overall it should be kinda a smooth experience. And again, here I should mention the moment probably about the Genshin Impact, which has been released in 2020, and it was kinda a surprising one aspect for many players, especially from the perspective that it's a free-to-play game, let's say, yeah, consider it as free-to-play. That it has such a huge world and developed storyline, a lot of different side quests, so players were spending just hours, days, months before they were able to hit a wall, let's say. So from the start, this project received a lot of, a decent amount of positive reviews, which are going to be really important during the first period of time, especially first couple months, let's say, when this game is going to meet the entire world. When we're talking here about the Honkai Star Rails, the whole thing that it's been polished really, and it had the start at a high quality, with, again, a strong story in a sci-fi fantasy genre, good voiceovers, impressive soundtracks, and a really strong turn-based combat system. Yeah, of course, there were a couple of issues at the very beginning, but overall the impressions, they were positive about this project, and they had a content plan for the upcoming months, which kinda makes sense and keeps people hyped at some point. As it's been mentioned already, monetization matters, and when people are seeing when it's really worth to actually invest their money into the game, they're most likely going to invest their money into this game. And again, we can mention here several successful examples. Of course, maybe some players may go in a crazy mode no matter what, but usually it's not the case, and we're talking in general about the player base, not some crazy people. And yet again, Genshin Impact, which got over 2 years, more than $4 billion of revenues. What? And this is a huge one result, I should say. And also a good example here is going to be actually the Black Desert. The whole thing is that, yes, at some point it's pay to win, but it's like B2P model where game is going to sell cosmetics by reasonable prices or convenience elements. Yeah, it's often been criticized for such pay to convenience element, but it didn't really harm the experience of players. The next moment again to mention here is actually going to be again about feedbacks and communication of developers and the player base. And here we actually can mention some really bright examples of games even that didn't really succeed at the very beginning, at the very start, but after that they pushed themselves to unbelievable results. And yes, again, here I am talking about the Wuthering Waves. I believe it's going to be a really nice example of a game which is right now is probably one of the best or the best gacha games. And yes, I might get a lot of hate for it, but hey, who cares? It's the fact. And the fact is that they were listening for their player base. They were responding as soon as possible. They were providing patches and fixes and updates which are becoming better and better and better. And on the contrary, we have such projects which are not doing this stuff at all. They don't listen for their audience, they not responding to them like at all. And again, a really bright example is going to be, and I heard a lot about it, and I don't have anything to say about it except that it's probably truth, because many of people, many of players, many of big content creators providing this thing that Genshin Impact is not listening for their player base and for their content creators. You may say that I am biased. Well, I'm going to tell you that these are the facts and the information that I kinda found from real players. Again, there might be two opinions for sure, but from what I know, did they change anything in their game from perspective of player base, from the complaints that they provided, that content creators provided? Did they update or changed anything?
Nope.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they are not. This is a bad aspect. I don't say that for such a huge game it's going to be like an immediate death, but eventually it's going to lead to such outcome if they're not going to listen. That's the reality. And again, if we're talking about some big and successful projects, usually they are providing some unique aspects and features that you're not going to see in any other game like at all. All the rest which are going to be released after them, majority of them, they're not going to succeed due to a certain point that they're not going to provide certain unique aspect, mechanic, whatever it's going to be, element, and they're going to be considered just as a clone. So if you have a game which is going to fill a certain niche, as I already mentioned, I believe at the very beginning of this video, you need to provide something special. That's the only way to actually beat the champion, let's say. So why actually so many games are failing? And I'll try to break this down really simple. And you may ask me first of all, wait, but all these gaming companies, they're kinda big and decent, let's say. Don't they understand all these previous points that I've provided here? They have analyticians, analytical workers, and so on. Well, obviously the answer that they do understand all of this stuff, but there are several moments that can influence the overall outcome of a success of certain game. And first of all, here I need to tell you that the overall gaming market is overflooded and it's a highly competitive area. So they understand that there are a lot of monsters of games which are sitting in a certain niche and they have to compete with them. And to do it successfully, they need to provide again something unique, as has been explained before. But here they might have several struggles and issues. First of all, obviously, it's going to be about money aspect, because they have to pay salaries, they have to support all that stuff that they're containing in their company on the developing of this project, to run all the servers and so on. And usually, let's say not usually, but sometimes this money that they have, that's not enough. The other moment which may have a huge impact is going to be probably about investors. And yeah, these are people basically who are providing their money to a project. And obviously they're waiting some results from this game. The company should provide some results to a certain period of time when it's been actually discussed and so on. Sometimes this time is not enough due to certain circumstances, and at the end we're getting some shitty product, because anyways they have to push this out and to at least get some money from it to at least cover all the spendings that I had on this project. And obviously the other moment not to mention about the developing of games. Let's say overall the gaming company is a complex engine, which consists of a lot of different parts, and if one part of this engine isn't going to work properly, this means that the whole engine is not going to work properly. And at the end we're going to get again a shitty product. So basically we're talking here about the qualitative workers, specialists, which are working on developing the game. If such qualitative workers, specialists are not enough, they don't have enough time to work on different parts of this game, they have a lot of different disadvantages and so on, and at the end we may get a really not very well polished product again, which they have to release due to certain requirements, and they're going to fail because of that. Might fail, might change it in a while, but who knows how it's going to actually be. And the last moment not to mention, obviously, it's going to be about the fact when the company understands that they're not going to succeed, let's say, that they're not going to beat their opponents or something like that. They understand it, but again, they invested certain amount of money and they need to get this money back. What they can do is to try, by the moment of release, have a certain plan, let's say, and try to really milk consumers, players who are going to be interested in this project as much as possible to again get money back. And now we're getting to the moment when we're talking about some upcoming projects which looking kinda promising, but it really depends on how developers are going to actually release them, how they're going to deal with player base, how they're going to deal with their release, let's say with polishing aspects, with pay-to-win models and so on. They matters all of them. So among this game are going to be Arknight's Endfield, actually, which is able to provide some unique type of strategical gameplay in a gacha with quite a decent gacha model, which I mean isn't looking that pay to win and kinda going to make sense, and majority of stuff there is craftable, which you are able to craft from basically factories that you're going to build, and you're going to manage your resources, and it's also providing some actions, team composition, different varieties of combats and so on. For now it looks kinda decent and really perspective, but we're going to have a look how it's going to be at the end on the moment of release. The other one not to mention is going to be here Silver Palace, and I already covered this game on my channel. I have a reaction to the trailer and overall an overview of some basic mechanics which this game is going to provide. First of all, the unique aspect is going to be obviously from a graphical perspective, and the world which it's introducing, it's like a Victorian style. Combats and battles, they are looking like some real active action life and really involving you into them. The combats, the mechanics, how these actions are working, different stealth systems as well. I believe the moments where you're going to choose how to actually finish this or that opponent, the finishers, the mounts, transportations, interactions with the open world and so on. It looks decent. It's been provided in the gameplay trailer. I mean, it was shown as a gameplay and it really looks amazing. And not to mention here another one big project which is planned for future and which is called Ananta, previously known as Project Mugen, and the whole thing that is going to provide an open world, urban open world RPG in anime style again, but it looks like a GTA game but gacha in anime style. So I guess it's going to give you overall an understanding of how it looks like, and they're providing certain mechanics and aspects of, again, interacting with the world, of buying this or that buildings or something like that, doing exercising, different vehicles and so on, like real GTA, but in anime style again, and our characters being freaking Spider-Mans, but overall, again, the combats and the things that they provided in the trailer, they looks kinda decent. Unfortunately, we don't have more information yet, but we are going again to see how it's going to be at the end. So, to this video should be kinda a certain conclusion, which is going to make sense, let's say, yeah? On one hand, we have some huge projects which received decent results and success, and they're staying in these positions, and yet nobody can move them from these positions. And on the other hand, we have certain projects which are looking kinda decent, but the main question remains how developers are going to actually manage these projects, and if they're going to at the end succeed and beat the already existing projects, or they're going to provide a new branch of games, let's say in gacha field. The one thing which potentially may support the new projects is going to be the fact that a lot of players, they're getting tired or they already bored from existing projects. Maybe they are not getting enough of entertainment from existing games and they're kinda looking for some other projects. This might be the case to actually, for already existing players, switch their attention to something else, something new, something promising. And if new games are going to succeed and going to actually provide the experience which is going to be really interesting to interact with, we are going to have some decent chances to actually have some real bangers in the gacha field, in MMO field, genre, whatever you can call it. And also, a really important moment is going to be about expectations from games, from players. If people are going to see that new games are matching their expectations, they're going to play it. Or even better, if the actual product, the actual game is going to be way higher and above anyone's expectations. This might be a real boom. So in the upcoming year or two, I believe we're going to see maybe something potentially completely different in gacha genre, with some projects being able to kill maybe some old games, or maybe to provide some new experiences, some more options for players, and give overall just a good experience from it. We'll see. So with that being said, I hope you actually enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Also, I hope it's going to be helpful for you to understand a little bit more about the game in general, and to have a better understanding when you see different games, if they're actually worth your time and investments or not. And even if you're enjoying the genre, at some point you're enjoying the game but you understand that it's not really worth it, probably it's better to switch your attention. So guys, wish you all the best and see you in the next one. Take care.